The Massachusetts Supreme Court ruled on Tuesday of this week that a lawsuit brought by the Attorney General of Massachusetts against the Exxon Corporation can in fact go to trial. Exxon is being sued by the state for lying not only to the public, but also lying to their own investors for decades about the dangers of climate change and, of course, how the product that they're selling is making climate change so much worse. So here's the thing. Exxon had, of course, been appealing this. They didn't want it to happen. They tried to get it thrown out. And finally, the Massachusetts Supreme Court said, listen, this case has merit. There is a real legal argument to be made here. You're gonna have to go to trial. You cannot keep trying to get this thing thrown out. You're done. You're going. You know, the judge, of course, by the way, or the judge is, I should say, didn't issue any kind of ruling on Exxon's culpability, on their guilt, on anything like that, or even the merits of the case. All they said was that this is a valid claim. The claims do have merit that, of course, will be fettered out in a court of law. So Exxon, like anybody else, you got to have your day in court. You can't escape it anymore. Now, we have actually seen plenty of lawsuits be filed against fossil fuel giants trying to hold them accountable for climate change. But Exxon's a bit of a unique animal here. Because Exxon documents, everybody always says, by the way, going back to the 1970s, if you actually look at their documents, they go back to the 1950s. Because I've seen them. I've gone through these documents myself, personally. They go back all the way to the 1950s, where Exxon scientists started talking about these emissions that our products are putting out there, and the accumulation in the atmosphere, and how that could create some kind of warming effect. This was, of course, before the term greenhouse gas, became a phrase that we used. It was 20 years before that. And then, of course, in the 70s, they had their science basically settled. So that's why people say they knew in the 70s. They knew in the 50s. They had it confirmed by the 70s, according to their own internal documents, which, by the way, you can find online. You don't have to file a suit to get these particular documents. Those are readily available. And that, of course, is what these lawsuits are based upon. Exxon knew back then, but rather than doing anything about it, they decided to cover it up. They've funded millions upon millions of dollars worth of climate misinformation. They have helped, along with all of these other oil companies, pay off scientists to go out there and lie to the public about the dangers of climate change. They're horrible people. But the question is that criminal, right? Can you actually sue them for this? Because again, people have tried to sue them for causing climate change in the past. They haven't been successful because it's harder to show damages, right? It's harder to show that the damage you as an individual suffered came from an emission from this particular oil company that somehow made it to the atmosphere, made it over here, made it into your body, and specifically caused your illness or your injury or whatever. Very difficult to prove. That's why it's hard to hold a single oil company accountable for climate change. Would have to be all of them. And of course, kind of like the tobacco lawsuits, they're working on it, right? We'll get there. We'll figure out how to do it in a good way and it'll get done. This one, however, is saying you lied to the public, but more importantly, and this is why I think it has a chance of success, you lied to your investors. That's how you get them. Because that seems to be the one thing that the law always cares about, right? Screw over as many little people as you want, but oh my God, you lie to people with money? Hoo-hoo, they're coming for you. Hey, why do you think Bernie Madoff was like the only person to go to jail for Wall Street scams? In recent history, obviously, because he ripped off rich people. All those banking executives, all the other folks who screwed people over with subprime mortgages and bad investments and securities and derivatives fraud and all that. Yeah, they screwed over mom and pop investors. So they got off. Bernie Madoff screwed over rich people, so he was held accountable. And that is basically the same tactic that this lawsuit is using here. Like, oh, you screwed over your investors, the people with a lot of money. And that's a good case. It may not be the one we want to see, but if it's one that works, then I'm all for it. Hey everyone, this is Aspen. And did you know that for the low cost of $0 per day, you can subscribe to the Fair and Balanced YouTube channel? We also encourage you to like, comment, and share, but again, click that subscribe button and help Aspen not be so grumpy.